Hi, everyone, and welcome to By HR for HR, the podcast where HR professionals learn from HR pros and workplace experts shaping the future of work. I'm your host, Jocelyn King, CEO of Virgil HR. For those of you who don't know about Virgil, we're passionate about helping HR teams navigate employment and labor law compliance with confidence so they can spend time worrying less about regulations and more time focusing on their people. Today, I'm excited to welcome Victoria Ashton, CHRO of Lob. We're going to discuss a variety of topic areas ranging from building the HR function in a hypergrowth setting to data analytics and AI and recruitment, among many things. And I think you're going to walk away with some valuable insights and practical takeaways for your own organization. Victoria, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Jocelyn.
Yeah, absolutely. I figured the best place to start first would be to tell us a bit about your current role today and what your organization does.
Sure. I am the Chief People Officer of Lob, and Lob is a technology-enabled direct mail platform. So we help companies of many different sizes, many different stages to bring technology, automation, and speed to what has traditionally been known as sort of a slower, older, sort of outdated industry. And so Lob is really bringing a lot of modernity to an older industry and bringing it into today's world. And in a lot of ways, I think it's similar to HR and a lot of the different things that we all focus on, and bringing some modernity to what sometimes can be looked at as maybe back office or admin kind of work.
So, in your role today, how big is your team and how large is the organization?
We are very lean. So we are a team of 5, and our organization is about 115 full-time employees.
So, I know when we spoke, you talked about just really loving that hypergrowth stage of an organization and building the HR function in a hypergrowth setting. Could you give us a little bit of background on what that looks like throughout your career?
Sure. In my first startup, we were, I joined very early on. I was employee number 7, and I was a team of 1 until we got to about the 100 employee mark. And so we had that hyper growth, sort of a doubling headcount overnight story as we found product market fit and as we gained funding. And it was really a matter of just saying yes to everything possible and wearing as many hats as I could to get our company to that scale as a team of 1. And that really propelled me into the career that I'm in now as a chief people officer, because I was able to be exposed to so many different parts of the business and really help build the business from the ground up and understand so many things about what helps a business grow beyond just the HR function.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was going to talk about this later, but you bring up a really interesting point, and that's beyond the HR function. I think that a lot of people unfortunately miss out on having that seat at the table because they often can't see beyond the HR function. What's your experience there?
I think it's really important that as much as possible as an HR leader, you're focused on proximity and curiosity. And so, proximity, what I mean by that is your proximity to the other leaders in other functions. So, whether that's the chief revenue officer or the CFO, and then having curiosity about what's going on in their part of the business and how the things that are driving their part of the business that tend to be more visible. So, revenue, growth, gross profit, how all of that ties into the work that we do as HR leaders. And so whether that's sitting down with the CFO and saying, can you walk me through the P&L? Or sitting down with your CRO and going through forecast models or growth models, and then being able to really look at those different factors and say, okay, I know engagement drives this, or I know that attrition would negatively affect this, and really understanding how our parts of the business as people leaders impacts those really visible levers that ultimately are the things that are talked about most at executive meetings, board meetings, And then you are building a partnership with the other leaders because they know that the work that you're doing helps them succeed in their metrics.
Yeah, and speaking about metrics, I know, as HR, we have our own metrics that we're focused on, but how are you aligning those metrics to the business?
I think that um, there's a direct line between a lot of HR metrics and business metrics in terms of gross profit, gross margin, revenue, conversion rates. Um, I think what's really important is the storytelling and the connection behind the way those metrics play into each other. And one of the best ways that you can tell that story is with powerful data. And so that's one of the things I know as an HR leader that I've struggled with is how do I build a tech stack that gives me all of this really good, juicy data that correlates directly to, oh, look, when this team's headcount, hit this, or when our quality of hire hit this, or when our regrettable attrition was this, I can dotted line to our revenue went up or our revenue went down. Whether it's good or bad, I think just having the systems and the data that are able to help you tell that really powerful story that helps you get an equal seat at the table.
Yeah, and something that you'd shared with me earlier was the analytics dashboard that you'd put together with HR data. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So we are partnering with a vendor that is truly, I would say, truly leading in the AI space. And I say truly because I think right now it's very noisy out there, and every software company is putting AI on their website. We have AI. So you really have to dig in and make sure you're asking the right questions to know, like, okay, is this something beyond just a more upgraded interface? So we're partnering with a vendor who essentially what we're doing is we are able to synthesize all of our data across multiple fragmented systems and have this AI layer on top that is constantly analyzing, packaging, and strategically positioning all of this data in a way that we're able to start drawing correlations that you really wouldn't be able to with just sort of spreadsheets. And so that's really starting to help us understand what are the things that we can do as a people team that are moving the business forward. And it's really important that HR leaders know that you can really own both sides. You can own building a really great place to work and own also as a leader building a place to work where we're really productive and we're growing and we're driving gross profit or revenue or whatever it might be. And the data tells a story of how those two things are actually really important that you have at the same time.
What's an example of what's in your dashboard? I'm super curious.
So some of the dashboards that we're building right now, they're custom. So we can kind of make them be whatever we want. And so we can, correlate our you can correlate the engagement survey answers to like specific questions to point in time revenue or gross profit. You can look at attrition trends laid over top of customer attrition trends. So you can start looking at sort of those interesting inflection points in the business and say what was going on with the people at that time, and is there some data here that would be helpful for us to build our goals, build our OKRs, and build our focus for the next year so that we know that the certain inflection points that we're trying to get to as a business, we're also empowering our people to get to those points as employees.
How are you leveraging these analytics when collaborating with your peers?
I think I think sharing information. Well, sorry, really quick. With peers, do you mean internally or other HR leaders?
Oh, sorry, internally.
Internally. Um, Internally, I think one of the ways that HR gets equal footing and equal seat at the table is being viewed as a trusted advisor and someone that can give guidance and can give strategic insights to the other executives. And so bringing this data to them that's specific to their department and saying, hey, isn't this really interesting? Like, look at the change year over year that you've had. Or, hey, I saw this come out in some of the data, and I have a little bit of concern here because I know your goals are XYZ. Let's sit down and talk together how to come up with a plan. And so I think tying the things that you're seeing in the data to knowing what their goals are or knowing what big project they might be working on or something like that helps them see you as like, okay, this person is using data and information that is going to ultimately impact, my performance as an executive, is really helpful. Yes, in driving the business, but also in building a really trusted relationship.
And speaking of building a trusted relationship, this path to being a trusted advisor to the CEO can be difficult at times, especially when you're working with a CEO who doesn't always understand the value of HR. What type of advice would you give to other HR professionals on how to build that reputation and relationship?
I think one of the important things is to know what's important to the CEO. Every CEO has different things that they're focused on and that keeps them up at night. And so I think first, understand what's really important to them. And then two, understand how you can influence or help them with that. And also know how to speak their language. I think there's a lot of times that I've even seen myself or seen other HR leaders kind of speak the HR talk, and you can just sort of see their eyes glaze over a little bit.
Mhm.
And so I think it's a little bit more of like speaking their language, understanding what's important to them, and then finding a way to be supportive and helpful with that. That gets your foot in the door and I think helps them see like, oh, okay, this person is here to help me. They can help move the business forward. They care about what I care about. And then the things that you want to get their eyes on or things that you want to shine a spotlight on, over time, you've built the trust and you're building the rapport where they listen and their eyes stop glazing over and they know that what you're saying is important. But I think first you have to meet them where they're at.
Just switching gears a little bit, one thing that you'd mentioned to me is that you have a master's in labor and employment compliance, which is, I think, a huge testament to not just your dedication to the HR profession, but also to an area that can be convoluting and really difficult to manage at times. I'm curious to get some insight from you on how you believe HR can move beyond transactional compliance and actually build a culture of compliance.
It's a great question. I think that one thing that you said, it's complicated and it's ever evolving. And so I think having a mindset of like, you're never done with compliance, right? It's one of those things that you kind of think about as like a checkbox. You want to make sure you're all good. But as soon as you're all good, something's changed again, right? There's another law or there's another state that your business is opening in. And so one, I think having a culture of compliance really requires also as a leader to have a culture of like curiosity and always learning and knowing that it's a continuous journey. There's not an end point necessarily. Um, Two, I think it's understanding that, compliance is there both for your employees and for your business. And so if you're able to get creative and really build like policies that go above and beyond compliance and are really, and what I mean by that is like, there's things you have to do where you meet the bare minimum, right? And sometimes that's where you just stop with policies. Like, okay, we're just meeting the bare minimum so we don't break the law. But looking at it of like, okay, what if we go above and beyond that and I make a policy that's really creative and more all encompassing, while also like, yes, we meet the bar of compliance, but there's more thought behind it. And it feels more like a genuine gesture that you're making of this is something we really care about. And it's not just about bare minimum meeting the bar so that we're legally compliant, but really about like, how do we build a business that is already above and beyond doing the things beyond what is just required on a day-to-day basis.
Right. Yeah, it's so tricky building a culture of compliance because everybody just sees compliance as this really annoying thing that people have to deal with. And instead, I think that there's a lot of power behind the culture of compliance where, you can really educate the workforce on why it's important to be compliant, but also how it's applicable to things like you said, your policies. I think that that's a perfect example. Like, when we first saw the introduction of flexible PTO, or it was called unlimited PTO, right? And I think people got a little more careful after that. But we see this introduction of unlimited PTO that speaks so much to your culture, but it's also helping you adhere to compliance requirements that you have to meet all across the United States so that you're not having to do this piecemeal policy in California and this piecemeal policy in
Right.
New York and Washington, D.C., and all of them. So if you can get there, that's the sweet spot.
Definitely. And I think too, like you can, there's a lot of topics that compliance touches, parental leave being one of them, right? How do you celebrate that as a company? And how do you make it really like something that your company's again kind of going above and beyond with, right? Like, can you send a baby basket when someone has a child? And it's like, okay, that's something we need to be really compliant with. There's going to be policies around it. But how does the team kind of take a little bit of that, just like creativity, right? And apply it to something that's very regulated?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a couple more things that I wanted to chat with you about before we wrapped up. And the first is something that I found really interesting about your background was your participation with a venture capital fund. And I thought it would be really compelling for other HR professionals to hear about your experience and contributions to the fund.
Yeah, definitely. It's certainly a very different kind of fact about me, and I am the only people leader in the fund. Everybody else is a go to market or revenue leader, and so I love standing out and representing the people function. I think, again, there's so much that our function influences and impacts in what makes a business attractive to investors and what also makes a business sustainable. And, people and talent are a real reason why investors, are looking at a business or interested in investing. And so, additionally, I think especially since COVID era, there's been a rise in interest and really attention being paid to people platforms. And so on the product side as well, it's been really interesting to be in the fund and talk to partners sometimes when they reach out and they're like, "Hey, we're looking at this people platform or we're looking at this talent platform. As a people leader, can you look at this and tell us if you think it's like a good investment or does this meet a need that your function currently has?" And so I've been able to be helpful to the fund on the side of like helping our portfolio founders and portfolio businesses with their people function, and then on the product side also looking at potential investments that are kind of people or talent based platforms. And so it's been really cool to see again the people function get equal playing time or some playing time, I guess you can say, in the venture world. But it's going to be, it will continue to be one of the biggest factors in investments and making good investments. Compliance is a huge thing, right? If a company has been operating far out of compliance for a long time and they start looking for investment, that will be something that will hold them back from being an attractive, portfolio company for a fund. And so there's a lot of different ways I think people leaders can be helpful and be engaged on the venture side.
How could somebody get involved?
I think accelerators are a really great way to start, whether you're just offering your time, whether you're getting involved with the accelerator to potentially help founders. And also accelerators tend to require much smaller checks to invest. And so it's a little bit more of an approachable way to get started. And then on the other side, if you're a people leader of a VC backed company, um, asking your CEO or your board or whatever for maybe an introduction to someone that they think that you could learn from or someone that you could be helpful to, and just start having conversations and getting your name out there and learning about it. I got introduced to the VC world through one of our Series A investors where they didn't just write a check, they got really involved in actually helping us operate. And so there's definitely different funds out there that are a little bit more like approachable and easier to get a foot in the door with. But I think a lot of times it's just about meeting people and learning about the VC world, just like the business, right? It's proximity and curiosity.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you're doing that, by the way, because as you kind of said, people leaders aren't really well represented when they're advisors to these funds. So super cool that you're doing that.
Thank you.
So, last question that I have for you, going back to AI a little bit, but AI on the talent side. What two questions here? First is, what challenges have you experienced in using AI for talent? And what advice would you give to an HR professional who's implementing it for the first time?
Great questions. I think for your first one, the challenges that we're facing on the talent side, I think just about every people leader I've talked to is facing this. So I don't think I'm saying anything new, but um, it's sort of garbage in, garbage out right now. And so with the rise of AI, there's the rise of AI bots, AI spam, AI generated content. All of that's coming into your job postings, especially if you are a remote company, especially if your job postings are on all kinds of different platforms that get picked up by the bots. And so we're really struggling with like the quantity of inbound and the volume is just overwhelming. And it's very, very hard to parse through and find the real people out there who are desperately looking for their next job that you so badly want to speak to, who are great. They're just getting buried underneath the avalanche of AI right now. And so there are AI tools to combat it, and we've implemented a number of them that are detecting fraud and kind of flagging spam, starting to filter. And I think one of the challenges is like every time you kind of learn how to overcome the like bad AI, it's learning how to get around your filters. And so it's every couple of months it's learning and up leveling the tools that you have. And so I think that will continue to be a challenge. And I'm so sorry. What was the second part of your question?
The second part was, what advice would you give to an HR professional
Yeah.
implementing AI on the talent side for the first time?
I think stay curious and keep experimenting. There's not going to be a silver bullet. There's not going to be a one size fits all. I think everyone is trying to figure it out right now. I think the biggest misconception is that like someone knows everything or someone's figured out like how to be the best AI leader in talent. I think the reality is like we're all in this race together. We're all figuring it out. And so stay really curious, try lots of different things. Definitely don't sign any long-term contracts. Ask for like a beta, ask for a trial. Ask if, if it's a really early on AI platform, like offer product feedback in exchange for like a 2 or 3 month contract. Just get really creative. And I think view this through the lens of like a bootstrap kind of startup, right? View your new take on talent and how to be a leader in talent right now in the AI era as we're all figuring this out, and you have to kind of build from the ground up again. And so know that the tech stack that you're using today will probably not be the same one that you're using in 6, 9, 12 months. But have some fun with it, right? Like we have to have some fun with this. I think everyone's, we're all getting a little bit like fatigued with AI this, AI that. But I think it's a whole new era for us as talent leaders. And so get curious and keep experimenting.
I love it. Well, Victoria, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your expertise.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And if today's conversation gave you insights, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with another HR professional. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.